fostering deeper relationships, influencing behavior change, developing resilience. You're about to start winning. Here is your host, Christine Bright.
Welcome to Parenting Game. We are in our second episode discussing autism. Today we're going to be digging into services and what is available for your child if they've gotten the diagnosis of autism. Today I am fortunate again to have with me Brenda Vison, who is the Director of School Services at Common Threads, and I have Barb Schlaefer, who is a parent who's been walking the journey of autism with her son with me also today. So ladies, again, thank you for coming. We had great discussion in our last episode, a lot of valuable information for parents. Barb, you've been great just about sharing your story, which I think is just so helpful for other parents to hear, that's tough, but the successes that can, come with this, and for you to sharing all the new information that is coming out, about autism. So today, as I said, we want to talk about services and what's available. And we touched a little bit on that. We talked about that there was at 0 through 3, so birth through 3 services. Mm-hmm. I would like you to explain a little bit more about that. So is that an actual program, or what is that?
Sure. So Birth to 3 is a federal program. It's actually part of Individuals with Disability Education Act. It's Part C. Part B is what you know of in the school with the IEPs. Mm-hmm. So every county has their own Birth to 3 program. In Dane County, there happens to be 2. There is Birth to 3 Connections, which serves individuals in Dane County outside the Madison School District, and Bridges for Families serves families within the Madison School District. And they provide services if the child is eligible, and they really partner with parents, and they use parent coaching to provide strategies to promote the child's development.
Oh, that is excellent. So again, if parents feel something in their gut that something's up, the mm-hmm. sooner you get that diagnosis, you can start getting services at an early age. You also mentioned that intensive home services. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like, and where does that support come from?
So that support comes from various independent organizations in Dane County. We're getting more and more every day. And they work with board-certified behavior analysis, mm-hmm. who come in and work with your child and develop an individual program using an ABA approach, and work on the skills that are missing. And
then, do those is it something you can find out about through your school, or is it something you find out? Like if you're part of Bridges, that's how you find out what's available. Mm-hmm. So how are they doing that? Searching the internet? I mean, how do they?
Any or all of those ideas. If they're part of Birth to 3, that information can be given to them. If you search intensive autism services in Madison, you will get mm-hmm. a listing of all the organizations. The professional who provides the diagnosis for autism would also have that resource list as well.
Okay, so again, a diagnosis is very, very helpful. Yeah. And we touched on that in the last episode too, that don't be afraid of labeling. We like using the language more of now you're naming it, so you understand what is going to be needed as they grow and develop. Another one was we talked about the IEP, individual education plan. Yeah, all those letters that you get to learn. Now that's strictly done through your school, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and you get that started. If you want an IEP, how do you get that started? Does the school have to initiate it? Can a parent initiate it? Do you have to wait for something negative to happen, at school?
Yeah. So a parent can request that an IEP or an evaluation be completed, And if the child qualifies, then they move forward with an IEP. An IEP is available to children from ages 3. So when they're done with birth to 3, they can transition into there to 21.
Okay. And then Barb, you've walked this. Tell us a little bit about your experience, how you went about getting that IEP going. Maybe if you had some roadblocks in that, how you navigated it.
So before we had the autism diagnosis, we actually had an IEP prior to that, because there were behaviors in kindergarten and first grade that lent itself to maybe making some adjustments in the way that he was learning, giving him some, more space, more time to complete tasks, those kind of things. So the IEP started then. And then the IEP is, as a parent, you can request a meeting at any time to adjust the IEP, but they do require that once a year you meet as a team and go over the IEP. Now, it is a living, breathing document, and it's important that as a parent that you understand what's in the IEP and ask questions. Absolutely ask questions, because you will read through it and you think it's like so detailed, because it is, and some things just won't make sense because it's based on goals. 3 out of 4 or 5 goals have to be met or whatever, but ask a lot of questions, and actually the team that you meet with, the teachers, the principal, the special education director, they're all in that room when you're going through your IEP, and they actually like questions, because we're all there together to come up with the best plan for the student. Once the IEP is done and in paper, it isn't just put away. It's still up to the parent to make sure that the student's getting the supports. So if I had any advice regarding IEP is keep them active. Just don't put them away in a drawer.
Okay, and and review them, because as you go through, you can forget. There's a lot of information in there, and what I tell parents too is like, let's read through it every once in a while. And this goal, oh, yeah, we're not making that goal. We're still struggling in that area. So maybe we need to go back and find, different strategies that
the other thing
are
I want to
going to work
mention
better.
too is that it can also help at home.
Yeah.
Because you can identify things that are happening at school and strategies that are working at school that you can then translate into home, and vice versa, because so many times when you sit in those meetings, the first thing they'll ask you is, so what's working at home? Or what's not working at home, And the two go together.
And one thing that I did notice, currently with one kiddo that I am working with the school, we started integrating the I feel, I need chart, where they can identify, point to a picture, this is how I'm feeling, and then point to a picture to say what they need. And what I thought was really great is they're more open to have him add to that. Another piece was, because they do think differently, and it's always interesting to find out what kind of sets them off. And for him, he just didn't like some of the pictures. He didn't feel they were accurate. So it's like, okay, this summer we're going to work on you drawing. What does that accurately look like, for you? So I love that openness of, they are getting the kids a little bit more involved. And then you had also mentioned, and I don't know if it was as your son got older, but them becoming active in the IEP. Was that something that your son ended up doing, or that you're seeing more of now?
I would say right around 5th or 6th grade is when he started taking a more active role in the IEP, and we started inviting him. There's a phrase I really love in I wouldn't call it special education field, but it's nothing about us without us. So making decisions about your child and without their input is not going to be effective, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So I still use that now, and so many times when people ask me questions about, what does your son want? I'm like, ask him. Ask him. He will
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah, and just because I'm the parent doesn't mean I know everything either. I mean, that's a big part, of what I share is asking them. They know themselves pretty darn well, So just overall in general, ask your kids. They know themselves. And you were going to share. What?
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's great for the big picture in IEP, but for everyday things as well, right? If you see a child starting to have a meltdown, you might think it's the lights or wherever your brain goes, you think you're solving the problem for the student. But if you ask them, they'd be like, oh, but Bobby walked in and I was not happy with him. Or, right, we don't know what they're thinking. We don't know what they're experiencing. So if we try to fix a problem without really knowing what it is, we're not going to get very far.
Yeah, and you can escalate.
Yeah.
And, that's language. That's a big piece of parenting game. And they, anybody who hears me speak, it's like I hammer this home, and it's help me understand what is going on or what was going on. Because then you're inviting them in. If you tell them, well, why are you doing that? That never works well. We don't even like it as adults. That can cause, escalation because now they're looking to defend themselves instead of sharing the truth with you, and how you want to solve it. So that is a wonderful change that, I love seeing. What did that do for your sons? This self-esteem, even personal awareness when he was able to start sharing for himself what would work? And in these IEP meetings, did you see, like in school in general, how did that help?
It helped immensely. And the other thing I want to say too is another tidbit, or what I've learned as a parent is, and it's not rocket science, and it's not just kids with autism, it's just parenting in general. It's like, what would I want for myself? What would I want? Would I want someone to make a decision about for me in terms of why I don't like this space right now? So that's when you empower your child, it boosts their confidence. They become more articulate about what they want, and then they can self-regulate, because we want to give them those skills and to do that, or you want them to learn those skills to self-regulate. It's not our job.
Yes.
To regulate. They need to learn to do that. But just this nugget, like I just say, what would you want in this situation, parent?
Yeah.
Would you want someone coming at you and saying, "Why are you doing that?"
Yeah.
How does that feel? How does that feel?
It is. We forget that they're, sometimes we get caught up, and it's out of goodness, right, of parenting. You want to protect your child. You want them to grow up to be good little humans. But in our exuberance, we tend to also think we know best how to fix and solve, and then then you get that frustration because we're not fixing and solving what they actually need. And as we said, part of becoming a good, successful human is learning to self-regulate yourself. Learning that, okay, this is an area of weakness for me. This is what I can do, better about it, or this is what I'm going to need, and using hindsight and okay, this is, could happen, and this is what worked, so I need to be prepared for that. And it is, I think, too, when you have a child, that's struggling, and there may be some judgment and stuff from the outside world because they're not understanding that, as a parent, you do want to cocoon them, and, Barbie can speak into that a little bit. I mean, you can get isolated when people aren't understanding, what's going on, with your child. And then you do just want to say, forget you, world. We're going to keep them here, but that's not helpful either. So this learning and teaching your kids to self-advocate is just across the board, no matter what's going on, is a wonderful piece. And I know with Common Threads, the one thing that you're doing, which I think is great, and I would be interested to see how it's helped you decide services to offer. We now have those more adult voices, you said, because now we're understanding, and they may have grown up without the support, but now they realize, they're naming what's going on inside them. How has that helped Common Threads determine what we need to do going forward? now that we're getting this feedback?
Yeah, I think it's helped immensely. Our autism supports that we use haven't changed because those have always been proven to help support an autistic person to be able to be their best selves in the moment. But what's really opened our eyes is people saying, you know, I thought I was bad. I thought I was wrong. I thought I was an alien. I hear that a lot, like they don't belong here on Earth. And what really helped them is connecting with the autistic community and not feeling alone. Having professionals tell them, there's nothing wrong with you. This is just how your brain works, right? Or some of those meltdowns, being told that we know that's not your choice. You're not choosing to do that. It is your brain protecting you and going into survival mode. You don't you don't have control over that. And you know, we hope to provide support so that that happens less and less and less. But I think just really understanding what their experience was and how it made them feel
is good. And that is becoming, do you find that more, you know, with Common Threads, that's becoming a bigger piece, that emotional wellness piece and building, you know, we had touched about it a little bit, the self-confidence. Is that becoming more of a piece to recognize and to focus in on? Is building that self-confidence and making them realize that this isn't a right-wrong thing, it's a different thing.
Yeah, that goes right along with the self-awareness, right? We want each student to learn and understand how they think, how they learn, what they need in their environment to feel safe and not have sensory assaults on them. And I think the two go hand in hand, right? So what we want to provide them are lifelong strategies to be able to maintain that, be able to take a break if the sensory environment is just too much, and self-advocate.
That's awesome. I love just all the changes and just the more acceptance, you know, of autism, and you know, people being more aware of not labeling and shaming parents, and you know, it's just it's not all, you know, it's not the parent, it's the thinking process, it's the lack of skills that need to be learned, and that is just so excellent. So getting back to services, in Common Threads, you have a clinical side and you have a school side. So explain a little bit what the difference is between the two.
Sure. So the clinic provides OT and mental health services on an outpatient basis, which means if you were to go to OT at Meriter, that would be considered outpatient. So it's mostly one-on-one, and you go meet with your therapist and you work on the goals that you want to work on. I think that is a big difference for Common Threads versus other outpatient organizations, is that it is led by the client. They get to decide what they want to work on, where they need to go, and then they're supported by our professionals.
And before you go on any further, too, just for parents who are new and learning this, OT is occupational therapy.
Sorry, yes.
Could you speak briefly, just what does OT cover? Because as adults, we're all very aware of physical therapy as we get older with the joint pain, and so what's the difference? As how I understand it is that physical therapy is more that gross motor, and your OT is more that fine motor. So what does that look like when they're doing OT?
Right. So a big part of OT is fine motor, or using your hands, using your arms. But the bigger piece for OT, or occupational therapy with autism, is that sensory piece. And they help autistics figure out their sensory systems, find out what we call regulates your sensory system, so what puts you into a calm, engaging zone, and how much of that do I need, and how do I get it? That's what the OTs at Common Threads
and
do
that's
more of.
OT, or that's sensory that you're taking in through touch, through hearing, through sight. It's not, you know, because sometimes I think we just get with the, you know, with the physical touching piece, but it's also what they're seeing, what they're hearing, all of that.
What they're tasting.
Okay.
Knowing where their body is in space. The pressures that come in, and touch, as you mentioned, there's touch. And then interoception is I don't know if new is the right word, but it's an often unlooked kind of sense, and that is the sense of being able to interpret the signals in your body.
Okay.
So knowing that you're hungry or knowing that you're anxious, just by the way your body feels, and being in touch with that and being able to interpret it and put it to an emotion, and like you said, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I need. Yep.
Oh,
Making
awesome.
that connection.
That is really great, and that's a lot of things, a lot of pieces that parents aren't aware of. So I'm just so glad we're getting that information out there. So that's the clinical side. Anything else that goes with that? You got the outpatient, the speech, maybe OT, PT with that,
And mental health.
And then is that mental health piece, is that done within is that piece within your clinic, or is that also outside?
Nope, that's a piece within our clinic. It's actually the big piece of our clinic.
Okay.
There are, how can I say this? Going with unmet needs for the adults in our community. We are trying to meet that need for mental health services for autistic adults. Something, as we're talking about kind of what's new and what's coming up, is autistic burnout, which can oftentimes look like depression, and it's just they get burned out from all the sensory input. They get burned out from what's called masking, and masking is them trying to look like a neurotypical and behave and interact with neurotypicals, and it just gets to be a point where it's too much, right? And they reach burnout.
Oh, that is really a good piece. That's something that, that's new to me, that I'm learning right here, right now, but that totally makes, sense. I mean, even as adults, we get put in a situation and, we're trying to keep up with everybody, like a new job, the stress that comes with that you're trying to keep up and fit in with everybody at that new job. So that totally makes sense. And that's, again, it's just so great that we're able to hear from, these who have grown up with it and now can speak into it and help, the ones that are newer and coming up through it. Right. So now the school side.
Okay. So the school provides services for students who aren't a good fit for the homeschool, for their public school. So they enter our school program. They go through an intake where they work with different professionals. We get to learn, again, what works for them to regulate. If they're able to tell us more about their thinking pattern or what they felt wasn't going right in school, to really get to those problems. And when I say problems, I really think they're problems that are impacting the student. I don't think of them as problems that impacted the adult, right? But the student, that was not a successful environment for the student. So what was wrong, and how can we fix it? What supports do we put in place? When we look at supports, we look at, first, the foundation is their sensory needs, and then we look at reinforcement. So what's in it for them? That's, again, getting at how it's going to make them feel better, right? What they're going to learn about themselves. At first, it may be with a tangible or an edible because they don't have that self-motivation yet, right? They're just learning about themselves. But then it's visual supports and structure and routine. And then reducing task demand. And finally, when all that is met, they're ready for skills, right? They're ready to have skills be taught. I'll give you an example of a task demand, realizing that was a word that you probably don't know, but it's taking away the pieces of a task that don't need to be there. So let's say they read a chapter in a book and the teacher wants a book report done to see if they understood what they read. Well, writing is notoriously hard for people with autism.
Correct.
So we would take away the requirement or the expectation of writing. So they might do speech to text, or they might have a scribe, which is somebody who writes for them. So we're removing the task demand to a place where they can be successful and succeed. And it doesn't affect anything that was being evaluated or being looked at the time.
Yeah, I think that's I would say I bump heads with schools with that piece a lot, because I typically end up working with boys, and a big piece of it is the writing. But yet orally, they can do it. I mean, I've worked with kids who can do complicated math in their head, and they can give me the answer, and then with that concrete thinking, they're going, well, why do I have to write it down? I gave you the answer, like it's right. I'm like, well, I know, but we need to practice writing. But I think, too, we got to get past that piece that writing it down doesn't mean you're learning. You can learn so many other ways. And that's great that option is out there. And again, because now they're feeling, well, if I can't write it down, then I must be stupid.
Right.
And that's not the case at all.
Right.
So you guys just offer a lot of different services, a lot of different support, and we also know that that's growing. Common Threads is one. There's, so many other places out there to get support. And again, the one thing we want to tell parents, go with your gut, start doing some research, finding out the best fit for your child and for you. But along with services, we do want to get out the full truth. And Barb, you're getting into this new place where you've walked the journey, through the school system, with Common Threads, and you're looking at that age 21 piece.
Yeah.
So share with us, because any parent is going to have to prepare for this.
Yeah.
So what's coming up?
Well, that's the scary part. There is a term in the community, we call it the cliff. And that is the age 21 when school services drop off. So here in the state of Wisconsin, and I think in a lot of states, you legally can go to school, public school, till the age 21. So that's a service, right? That's available to your student till age 21. What happens after 21? Right now, if they're in school, they're in a structured environment. They're getting support. They probably have a team around them. As a parent, that feels good. We have a plan. We have a team. Everyone's and then, holy cow, up ahead we see this big sign. It's called 21, and services drop off and they fall off a cliff. The good news-ish is there are other paths out there. But they're not as turnkey as an IEP, as a public school system. There is not. It's pick out of the tree. Department of Vocational Rehab is one place to go. Just as it sounds, vocational rehab, it helps young adults get the skills necessary. They provide job coaches. Even might help them to enroll in technical school, that kind of thing. So there's that piece. There are colleges and universities out there are just now opening up some programs for people on the spectrum. But you have to do your research.
Yeah.
You do. research, yeah.
You guys, thank you so much. This was a lot of information, but it's great, and I thank you, Barb, too, for continuing to share your story, so parents can see what's available now, but also have that awareness that things are going to change, and at that age of 21, and what's out there, and then maybe in a year or so we'll have you come back, and then you can share a little bit more on that, because you're in starting that journey on that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, again, thank you for tuning in. We will be recording episode number 3, a continued conversation on autism. And remember that time invested in a child is never wasted.
Thank you for watching The Parenting Game. All episodes of The Parenting Game are available on demand at sunprairiemediacenter.com.